Norse mythology is full of great battles, huge feasts, strange creatures, and wise sayings. It has inspired art, books, movies, and games for hundreds of years. Let's start by meeting the main characters in this story, the gods. There were many gods in Norse mythology, like Odin, the god of wisdom and magic, Thor, the god of thunder and strength, and Freya, the goddess of love and beauty. They knew what would happen before it happened, and they kept track of it all with their magical spears. Now, whenever you hear about the Norns, think of them as the rule-makers and keepers of time. But the Norsemen weren't the only ones who could change the course of history. Even though they were powerful, the Norsemen were still a part of the grand plan. Well, that's where the idea of a god's power being limited comes in. They made their own decisions and sometimes even broke the rules. These stories teach us that even though our lives may be set in motion, we still have a say in how they turn out. What I'm trying to say is that even if we can't change our destiny, we can still choose how to act. Loki was too cocky and thought he was above the laws of nature. So the Norns took away his power to change into bigger animals like wolves or bears. Many people feel like they're not in control of their own lives, so they had to decide whether to follow the rules or take a risk and do their own thing. We should think carefully about the rules and ways of doing things that we're given. Instead of just following them blindly, we should consider if they really make sense and if they're helping or hurting us. And if we decide to break the rules, we should be ready to face the consequences. Sometimes they chose to follow the rules and sometimes they broke them. We have the power to make our own story, but it's up to us to write it. If you want to keep the story going, please share your thoughts below. Can't wait to see what you come up with. But no matter what they chose, they had to deal with the consequences. So instead of worrying about things we can't control, maybe we should focus on making the best of what we have right now. After all, that's the only way we can write our own story. Whether it's because of their family, their country, or even the planet's future. It seems like we're all dealing with forces beyond our control. We come and go, but the universe keeps going. No matter how much we try to change things, the bigger picture never changes. We're all just tiny parts of something much bigger than ourselves. But that doesn't mean we don't matter. It's like when you're playing a small role in a big movie. Your part might be small in the whole movie, but it's still important. But maybe Norse mythology can help us think about these issues in a different way. That's why he turned into something so small. In the end, though, he still tricked everyone. And that shows that no matter how powerful you are, there are always limits. You see, every single person is like a small cog in a huge machine, and each of their decisions adds to the overall pattern of life. If we didn't have rules or ways of dealing with things, life would be pure chaos. Everything would fall apart without them. Sometimes we don't like the rules or think they're unfair. That's when things get tricky. Do we stick to the rules or break them? It's a tough call, but breaking the rules isn't always a good idea. It can lead to more problems and suffering. In Norse mythology, it's like a never-ending dance between fate and free will. Each spear represented a person's life, and by tapping a spear, the Norns could make the future change. For example, one time Thor was supposed to die, but he didn't. The reason was kind of silly. See, the god Heimdall was supposed to keep an eye on Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, which was super strong. But Heimdall got drunk one night and fell asleep on the job. Someone stole the hammer and used it to cause trouble. Then Loki showed up and said he'd give them a drink that was so good it would make them forget all their problems. He was being sneaky, because the drink was actually poison. But someone else stepped in and saved Thor in the nick of time. As you can probably guess, Loki was behind this whole scheme. So Thor and his friends had to work together to stop him from causing any more trouble. Let me tell you, they weren't shy about using those spears. Sometimes they'd tap them gently, but other times they'd hit them hard and make big changes. Each god had a special job, and they all lived at Asgard, which was ruled by Odin. The gods weren't perfect. They made mistakes, and sometimes even ordinary people could hold them responsible. So when people talk about fate or destiny, they often use the word. And in the end, he managed to cheat death. Another time, Loki did something really bad. He killed Balder, who was the son of Odin and one of the most powerful gods. Everyone was sad because Balder was kind, helpful, and everyone's friend. His sister, Nanna, was so upset she died of a broken heart. When Odin found out, he was furious and went after Loki. But here's the kicker. Before Odin could get revenge, Loki used his powers to turn into a fly. These gods weren't just in charge of people's religious beliefs, but also of the way the world worked. They were kind of like the rules of the game, if you know what I mean. But in Norse mythology, there was one very important thing that the gods couldn't change, and that was the Norns. The Norns were three magical sisters who were in charge of writing the story of the whole world. They were like the ultimate rulers of fate. This comes from Old English and Old Norse. It means the interconnectedness of fate and destiny. Word is an important part of Norse mythology. Today, let us look at some of the most interesting stories and ideas from Norse mythology and see how they can help us better understand our own lives. But let us remember that this story took place long ago, in a faraway place where everyone believed in magic and myths. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, if everything is written down, does that mean we don't have a choice in what happens to us? Well, that's a good question. But let me tell you, things aren't always what they seem. Back in those days, people didn't have a watch to tell the time, so they'd often look up to the stars and try to guess it. The sky was like a giant clock face, showing the hours with its hands moving around. That's why the Norns were often shown as spinners, because they were in charge of spinning the thread of destiny and deciding how long each person would live. In Norse mythology, these three ladies sat by a magical well called Yggdrasil and wove the tapestry of life. Okay, now let's get back to the story. Even though the Norns had set the rules, the gods and humans could still break them. See, even though the Norns had decided Thor would die, he didn't let that stop him from trying to change his fate. You're probably wondering, how could a god turn into such a small bug? So as you can see, the gods weren't just along for the ride. Now, these stories may be old, but they're still relevant today. These myths teach us that even if there are things we can't change, like our past or the rules, we still have a choice in how we react and behave. Here's the deal. Our lives are like a never-ending journey, and we're all just figures in this huge cosmic dance. Think about it. In Norse mythology, the gods and heroes had to deal with this problem a lot. When we can learn from these stories, remember, life is like a never-ending journey. We can't change the past or rewrite the future, but we can choose how to act in the present. And that's the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did.